They never told you the truth about why she left. You believed it was because you weren't romantic enough, not affectionate enough, not devoted enough. You spent years thinking that the way to secure her love was through giving more attention, more comfort, more sacrifice. But here's the merciless truth. Devotion without tension does not bind her, it bores her. She didn't walk away because you lacked kindness. She walked away because kindness came too easily. She left not because you failed to give, but because you gave too much. Think back. Every time she slipped away, it wasn't into the arms of a safer man, a gentler man, a more devoted man. It was always into the orbit of someone different, someone who seemed to carry a force she couldn't explain, someone who could ignite her craving even when he gave her almost nothing at all. And now you're left with a painful question. Why does he awaken an obsession in her that she can't confess, while you, who gave her everything, remain invisible? The answer is not found in fairy tale love stories. It is not written in candlelit dinners or endless affirmations. It is hidden in a darker, older place inside the forbidden psychology of desire itself. She will never speak of it. She will deny it to you. She will deny it even to herself. But her body betrays her, her silence screams it, and her mind obeys it. Today we strip away the veil. We are going to uncover the 5 laws of desire, the silent forces that enslave her thoughts, turn resistance into obsession, and make the difference between being forgotten or being unforgettable. These are not tips, they are not tricks, they are not shallow pickup lines. They are structures, psychological laws written into the core of human craving. And once you see them, you will understand why she could never stay addicted to you, but could never escape him. By the end, you will face the deepest paradox, why her strongest rejections are often her ultimate confessions. The man who sees it commands her world. The man who misses it dies begging. And that's where our story begins, with the first law of desire, the scarcity law. She craves what she cannot keep. You believed presence was love. You believed showing up, texting back instantly, being always available was proof of loyalty. You thought that love meant abundance, but abundance never creates addiction. Scarcity does. The human brain does not worship what it can drown in. It worships what it fears to lose. Every obsession, every fixation, every addiction is born from the same primal engine, the terror of absence. Think about the time she ignored your constant messages, yet spiraled into madness when another man texted her once after days of silence. Why? Because his presence was unpredictable, scarce, dangerous. Scarcity twists the female mind into thirst. It starves her attention, sharpens her desire, and carves you into her imagination more deeply than devotion ever could. This is the paradox you never understood. When you are always available, you become invisible. When your love is guaranteed, it becomes background noise. But when your presence is rationed, when your time is uncertain, when your absence forces her to wonder, doubt, and imagine, you transform from ordinary into unforgettable. The cruel law is this: she cannot crave what she already owns. She only trembles for what she might lose. Every story of female obsession begins with lack, the missed call, the sudden silence, the unexpected withdrawal of presence. She doesn't interpret it as rejection. She interprets it as worth. Her unconscious whispers, "If I cannot have him easily, then he must matter." That whisper becomes a chain. Scarcity forges meaning where abundance erases it. So, stop pouring yourself out. Stop flooding her world with proof of love, because what you give freely becomes worthless, but what you withhold becomes priceless. Understand this. Scarcity is not cruelty, it is gravity. It is the engine of desire. When she cannot predict you, she invests in you. When she cannot guarantee you, she obsesses over you. But here's the catch. Scarcity alone is not enough, because if you vanish without weight, you are forgotten. If you withhold without depth, you disappear into irrelevance. Scarcity is the spark, but it needs a frame. And that leads us to the second law of desire, the frame of law. You spent your life believing that love was built on flexibility, that the more you bent, the more she would stay. You thought that compromise proved strength, that patience proved devotion. But here is the brutal truth. Every compromise carved pieces out of your worth. Every time you bent your own rules, every time you erased your own boundaries just to keep her happy, you didn't bind her closer, you erased yourself in her eyes. Because a woman does not orbit compromise. She orbits LAW. She does not crave a man who bends to her storms. She craves a man before whom her storms collapse. Because chaos, no matter how wild, bows when it collides with structure. And when you embody structure, she cannot resist. Law is the hidden axis of female desire. It is not what you give, it is what you refuse to break. When your presence is scarce, she begins to thirst. But when your boundaries are immovable, she begins to obsess. Think back to the moments she lost respect for you. It wasn't when you failed to give enough affection. It was when you betrayed your own standards. You said you wouldn't tolerate betrayal, yet you forgave it. You said you valued your dignity, yet you sacrificed it for her approval. You said you had standards, but you bent them the moment she pushed. And in that instant, she knew the truth. You had no law. A man without law has no weight. He becomes like air, useful for a breath, then forgotten. But a man who carries law, he becomes unforgettable. Because every test she throws, every boundary she presses against, every attempt to bend you becomes a proof that you are greater than her impulses. This is what her unconscious mind worships, not cruelty, not arrogance, but the immovable force of law. And here's the paradox. She doesn't test you because she wants to destroy you. She tests you because she needs to feel the edge she cannot cross. Every challenge is her unconscious search for your line. Every time you hold that line, she feels security. Every time you break it, she feels contempt. This is why she obsesses over the man who refuses to bend. Not because he is harsh, but because he is real. The male who bows becomes her servant. The male who carries law becomes her axis. And the female mind clings to what is greater than itself. Stop fearing her disapproval. Stop running from her tests. They are not traps. They are measurements. She measures you to see if you are anchored or adrift. If you collapse, she knows you can be replaced. If you stand, you become irreplaceable. Your law is her obsession. It is the wall she crashes against, the structure her chaos secretly craves. And here is the deeper secret. Law is not cruelty. Law is clarity. It tells her, this is where I end, and this is where you begin. Cross it, and you lose me. That thread of loss engraves itself into her mind. It forces her to measure you not by what you give, but by what you will never surrender. She does not love the man who tolerates everything. She uses him. She does not respect the man who bends to her whims. She exploits him. But she becomes addicted to the man whose law she cannot break. Every failed attempt deepens his weight. Every confrontation with his unshakable frame burns his image deeper into her psyche. This is why boundaries are not weakness. They are magnetism. Every time you hold the line, you remind her of something greater than her impulses, something stronger than her moods, something she cannot control, and the human heart obsesses over what it cannot control. But boundaries alone are not enough. Because law without weight is brittle, rules without presence crumble. For law to bind her mind, it must be anchored in something deeper. It must be tied to gravity. And that leads us to the third law, the gravity effect. You thought she wanted charm. You thought she wanted jokes, compliments, sweet words, endless displays of effort. You believed desire was something you could perform into existence. But here is the truth. She does not orbit charm. She orbits MASS. Charm is seasonal. Charm fades. Charm is a performance that burns itself out. But mass, real weight, does not fade. It bends the room around you. Mass is not arrogance. Mass is not decoration. Mass is the invisible force of a man who does not need to prove himself. Think of the man she obsessed over. He wasn't the funniest, the most talkative, or even the most affectionate. He was simply there, with weight, with stillness, with presence. His silence unsettled her more than your endless devotion ever could. His stillness enslaved her more than your constant pursuit. Mass is not something you show. It is something you are. When you sit without fidgeting, when you listen without rushing to fill silence, when you exist without scrambling for approval, that is mass. When you remain anchored in yourself while she storms, tests, or pulls away, that is mass. And women cannot resist it because gravity is beyond choice. It is instinct. This is why every step you took toward her made you lighter. Every explanation, every apology, every desperate attempt to convince her only revealed your emptiness. Because gravity does not move toward, it pulls inward. You lost her because you became vapor. You floated everywhere, but anchored nowhere. You were consumed in one gulp and forgotten. But the man with gravity? He remains like stone, impossible to swallow, impossible to erase. This is why the still man enslaves her thoughts. He is not rushing to prove. He is not performing. He is not chasing. He simply is. And that stillness forces her to circle him, again and again, unable to break free. Gravity is the refusal to move first. Gravity is the quiet defiance that whispers, "You may approach, but I remain." And that whisper terrifies her. That whisper binds her. Do you see the paradox? The more you chase, the less pull you have. The more you prove, the less you matter. But the less you move, the more she spirals. The less you reveal, the more she imagines. The less you perform, the more she obsesses. Mass is eternal. Charm is disposable. But here's the danger. Gravity loses its power if it is fully exposed. When she sees everything, when all mystery dies, when your depths are exhausted, your presence becomes ordinary. Predictable gravity loses its pull. This is why mystery is not optional, it is essential. Because what she cannot name, she cannot escape. What she cannot define, she cannot quit. And that leads us to the fourth law, the one most men are terrified to embody, the forbidden veil. You were taught that transparency was love, that the more you revealed, the safer she would feel, that if you laid your soul bare, every thought, every wound, every weakness, she would finally see your honesty and stay. But honesty without restraint is not intimacy, it is suffocation. Because here is the cruel truth. A man fully known is a man easily dismissed. She does not become addicted to what she can explain. She becomes addicted to what she cannot solve. The female mind is not enslaved by clarity, it is enslaved by mystery. What she cannot name, she cannot let go. What she cannot define, she cannot stop circling. This is why the man who confessed everything, who gave her total access to his heart and mind, became forgettable. He left nothing to chase, nothing to unravel, nothing to imagine. His transparency dissolved the tension, killed the spark, and turned desire into boredom. But the man who remained partly hidden, the one who spoke less, revealed less, withheld just enough, he became the puzzle she could never put down. His absence became a story in her head. His silence became a question she could not stop asking. His distance became a fire she could not extinguish. That is the power of the forbidden veil. The veil is not cruelty, it is power. It is the thin line between her hunger and her knowledge. When she collides with what she cannot penetrate, her mind fills the gaps with fantasies, and those fantasies grow larger than any truth you could ever give her. Think back. Every time she obsessed, it wasn't with the man who told her everything. It was with the one who left her wondering, the one whose silence forced her to invent meanings, the one whose absence became louder than another man's constant presence. She doesn't crave the man who reveals every thought. She craves the man whose depths she cannot reach. This is the law. What you reveal, she forgets. What you conceal, she remembers forever. But this does not mean playing games. It is not about manipulation. It is about restraint. Restraint in speech, restraint in confession, restraint in proving yourself. Because every word you spill to ease your anxiety makes you lighter. Every attempt to explain makes you smaller. Every time you rush to give clarity, you take away the very oxygen her desire needs to burn. Do less, speak less, reveal less, and watch her imagination do the work your explanations never could. She does not need your constant truth. She needs your shadows. She does not crave your confessions. She craves your restraint. She does not obsess over the man who lays himself bare. She obsesses over the man who forever remains just out of reach. The veil is not deception, it is the preservation of mystery. And mystery is the chain of addiction. Scarcity awakens thirst. Law engraves worth. Gravity enslaves her orbit. But the veil chains her mind. And yet, there is one final law, the deepest one. The one so paradoxical that it shatters everything you thought you knew. It is the forbidden psychological secret, the paradox of denial, the forbidden secret. This is the moment that broke you every time. You heard her say no. You heard her hesitation, her words, her resistance, and you believed them. You thought her denial was truth. You thought her rejection was final. You thought her words carried the weight of her deepest desire. And in that obedience, you erased yourself. But here's the law you never saw. Her denial is not always rejection, it is often confession. Female psychology is woven from contradiction. The conscious mind hides what the unconscious already chose. The lips deny what the body screams. The surface resists what the soul has already surrendered to. At the very peak of her desire, she cloaks it in hesitation, in withdrawal, sometimes in outright rejection. Not because attraction has died, but because she is testing whether you can see beyond the veil. The weak man hears her words and collapses. He takes language at face value, bows to the surface, and proves he is ruled by illusion. And she forgets him. Because there is nothing unforgettable about a man who is blind to signals. But the man of frame knows better. He sees through contradiction. He reads what is hidden beneath the words. He sees the dilation of her eyes, the tremor in her breath, the silence after her protest, the longing woven into her resistance. He understands the paradox. Her strongest denial is often her deepest confession. I push you away because I cannot escape you. I resist because I already crave. This is the forbidden psychological secret. Denial is not the end. It is the final wall before surrender, and the man who sees it owns her mind. Every woman carries this duality. Consciously she resists, unconsciously she yields, and in that tension, obsession is born. Because what she resists, she returns to. What she denies, she dreams of. What she pushes away, she secretly grips tighter. You believed her words and missed her signals. You mistook hesitation for rejection. You mistook denial for indifference. And so, you walked away, proud of your respect, while another man stood firm and became unforgettable. Do you see it now, the cruel reality? Women do not get addicted to men who obey their words. They get addicted to men who rule their signals. They get addicted not to the man who collapses at rejection, but to the one who remains unmoved by contradiction. The man who sees through denial becomes the obsession she cannot quit. And this brings us full circle. You wasted years believing in fairy tales. You thought love was spoken. You thought loyalty was enough. You thought sacrifice made you irreplaceable. But love was never in her words. Desire was never in her promises. It was always hidden here, in scarcity, in law, in gravity, in mystery, and finally, in denial. You ignored these laws, and so you were erased. You bent, and so you broke. You gave endlessly, and so you lost everything. But now you see the structure. Now the truth is clear. She never becomes addicted to what she can name. She becomes addicted to what she cannot escape. The men who embody scarcity, who enforce law, who carry gravity, who remain forbidden, who see through denial, those are the men who chain her mind. Those are the men who become her secret obsession. And now, the choice is yours. Remain the man who bends, the man she forgets, the man erased without hesitation, or become the man she cannot quit, the man she denies yet craves, the man who embodies the laws she cannot break. This is the forbidden psychology of desire. This is the secret she will never admit. But once you see it, you can never unsee it.